This is Die, Grave Robber, Die, session 1 of 2. Let's start by introducing ourselves. So when I call on you, please say your name, your pronouns, and anything else you'd like for us to know about you. Your experience with Trophy, maybe just with role-playing games. If you have something you want to plug, by all means do that. I'll start. My name is Jason. I use he, him. They is also fine. And I am the publisher of Trophy. And as of the day of this recording, we finally put out the 3rd book in Trophy in PDF form, which is Trophy Gold. I'm very excited about that. But this is Die, Grave, Robber, Die is a third-party Trophy product, and I love playing those from time to time because it just gives you, it's just fun to experience the full breadth of it. So I'm really excited to be able to run this. Let's go to Sarah.
Hello, I am Sarah. I use pronouns she, hers, and I am just an avid roleplay geek. I started out with D&D, and I'm in Jason's Saturday campaign, so I've played Trophy Gold and Brindlewood Bay and some other things, but this is my first Trophy Dark, so it's exciting. I look forward to the end.
Fantastic. Kyle.
I'm Kyle Meeks. I use he, she, they pronouns as I'm gender fluid. I have played in a couple of Trophy Gold sessions and games, and including the Ruins of Old Caldor, which is incredible and fantastic. But I've only run Trophy Dark. I've never been a player before, so I am really, really looking forward to that. Currently obsessed with weird hex crawling stuff, but otherwise familiar with lots of different role-playing things.
Fabulous, thank you. And Rob.
Hi, I'm Rob. I use he, him pronouns. I am a pretty keen Trophy player. I've played Dark a number of times, always with Jason running it. I've played Gold a number of times, mostly with Jason running it, and I'm in one of Jason's regular games of the Between, the Shadow Society. So yeah, just a avid kind of narrative and rules light role player.
Fantastic, thank you. Let's do CATS. CATS is an acronym that all of you are familiar with, but for people watching the video, it's an acronym that stands for concept, aim, tone, and subject matter. I like to do this before every game I run in order to establish some basic expectations for what's going to be happening. And so the concept, we'll start with Trophy Dark first. Trophy Dark, of course, is a game it's a horror fantasy game with an emphasis on the horror. The default setting of Trophy Dark is very much like sort of classic sort of tomb robbers and treasure hunters, right? This particular module we're doing is a little different, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Trophy Dark is a game that embraces a really particular play ethos, which is called play to lose. And so you should try to keep your character alive, but know that you might not be able to, or that by the end of the game, they might be very, very changed for the worse, and you should lean into that eventuality. And so try to keep them alive, but when it's time to face the music, really lean into it, and let's give them a fantastic, fun, horrifying end. Die, Grave, Robber, Die is the second of a set of Trophy Dark modules by Michael Van Vliet. The other is Devil Aim for Me. Devil Aim for Me is like a kind of a Western spin on Trophy Dark. And this one is kind of a gothic horror spin on Trophy Dark. Gothic horror being something that I know something about. And so I'm excited to give it a shot. I don't want to say too much more than that, but that's sort of where we're at with that. Aim. The aim of the characters is, in this specific module, you are trying to locate a body that was grave robbed. And so that's what you'll be doing. The aim of sort of us as a group of players is, like I said earlier, to sort of lean into the horror, lean into the darkness, and give these characters a fantastic ending, whatever that ending happens to be. In terms of our play aims, or in terms of our session, we are going to first make characters and introduce them, and then we will do rings 1 and 2 this week, and then we'll do rings 3, 4, and 5 next week. The tone, we'll also do a debrief at the end as well. The tone is dark, as you might imagine. Dark, scary, creepy, gothic horror. Obviously, some levity from time to time is okay, but try to maintain that dark, hold space for that darkness. In terms of subject matter, probably the main subject matter thing that's going to come up here that might be a little squicky is grave robbing. So that is a thing that's going to happen in this game. We will have some safety tools on the table. We have the open door policy, we have lines and veils, and the X card. The open door policy is very simple. You could leave for any reason. The X card, in this context, if something happens in the game that you find to be just not fun, you can say X card or type it in the chat, and we will stop and revise whatever we need to revise. And then lines and veils, that's handled on the character keeper, which you'll have in a moment. There's a little tab for safety. Just go in there and click your lines and veils. I think you also have the option of clicking things you are interested in exploring, in which case, please check that as well, because I'd like to know that so I can lean into that stuff. And so that is cats. Any questions about cats before I keep going? Okay, fantastic. In that case, let me go ahead and pause the recording while we make characters. Okay, we're back. Let's go ahead and introduce our characters for these two sessions of Die, Grave Robber, Die. I always want to yell it because the title is in all caps. I'm like, Die, Grave Robber, Die, but I won't do that. I'm going to go in the order of the sheet, left to right. Just let us know the very basics of the character: name, the character's pronouns, their occupation, their background, their drive, any rituals you might have. And if you know anything else about your character, especially as it relates to their drive, by all means, tell us. But it's okay if you don't, because we're going to discover it as we play. That's part of what we do when we play. So I'll start on the left with Kyle and Kender.
Yes, so my character's name is Candor, and she uses she, her pronouns. She is kind of a short, mid-30s kind of age, and is very much looks like a well-dressed traveler, keeps her clothes clean and everything. And she is a professional mourner who wanders around and provides mourning services. As such, she is skilled at performance, especially performing grief, melancholy, and performing different rituals. Some of them have power, and some of them are the kinds of rituals that simply make people feel better at funerals. She is a homesick exile. She cannot ever go home. She doesn't really talk to people about it, but it probably has something to do with this cursed dagger that she's carrying around. In fact, her drive is to convince the cursed dagger to choose a different owner, choose a new owner, and no longer plague her with its presence. And on top of all of that, she cares deeply about the dead, simply because growing up, she comes from a line of prestigious funeral directors from a far off land. And so that kind of informs how she interacts with the dead. So someone, a grave robber should die.
Fantastic, thank you. I have a side story, if you don't mind. I like to interject side stories. A very good friend of mine is a funeral director, and she's a Black woman, and her sense of humor and her way of like moving through the world is she purposely got permission to build her funeral home in the middle of the ritziest neighborhood in Dallas. And she fought forever to get it happen. And she's like, I can't imagine anything that would burst these people's bubble more than a funeral home run by a Black lady in the middle of their neighborhood. It's like, good for you. Anyway, she's my hero. All right, let's keep going with Rob and Matthew.
Yeah,
Matthew?
I guess.
Okay.
Matthew is a grave robber. and his background is an unreliable lamplighter. So I think he's a kind of shady character who has never been able to hold down even the most straightforward regular job. He's kind of a disreputable lurker in shadows. His drive is to found an orphanage for all outcast weepers. So I think this is maybe a kind of caring side that he keeps a very secret, or is certainly not apparent. He has two rituals, inhabit and hollow, the former of which allows him to possess a personal animal, and the latter allows him to push a spirit from its own body. So they seem to kind of fit together nicely. Yeah, I think that's about it. Starting round 3.
Fabulous, thank you. And finally, let's go to Bertrand Morris. Sarah, tell us about Bertrand.
Well, Bertrand Morris is soon to be Dr. Morris. He is a medical student, which means some of his skills come from that include alcohol, debt, and medicine, along with skin. But that's coming from his background as a hemophiliac tattoo artist. So I imagine that's going to be fun to work in, something that he started out with his passion project in life, thought he was going to tattoo forever, and then had to go to medical school. I have the drive to seek soft hook salt and complete your ritual scarification. And I took the rituals ashes, which allows me to cremate a handful of matter, and hollow to push a spirit from its own body.
Very good.
I too am starting with a ruin 3.
Fabulous, thank you. Okay, so good. I want to talk about just some rule stuff for Trophy Dark before we begin. I've already mentioned the play to lose ethos, and so focus on that. But also, I think it's really important to understand that this game is highly collaborative in nature. So I have Michael's incursion, right? It is a beautifully written but otherwise skeletal format, which is intentional. So we'll be moving from rings 1 through ring 5, and at ring 5 it's over. Then we'll do an epilogue. But that format, like that structure is a really, I mean, it's an outline basically. There's a lot of like space for us to fill in the story, right? And the way we do that, the principal way we do that, well, one way is you'll be answering lots of questions. I'll be posing lots of questions, especially right in the beginning. So get ready to answer questions. But also there is a die roll in the game called the risk roll. And there's a part of that die roll called the Devil's Bargain. And the Devil's Bargain is really your way as a player to sort of push the narrative and the story in a certain direction. And so a Devil's Bargain is the thing that happens no matter what. So if you're rolling some dice, and in order to build your die pool, you can accept a Devil's Bargain from another player or myself. And if you accept it, you get a die bonus, but the thing we offered happens in the fiction, no matter what, whether you succeed or fail. So as an example of this, a simple example I like is your character, let's say that Bertrand is leaping across a ravine, and as a Devil's Bargain, we say, well, Bertrand, no matter what, your tattoo tools are going to fall down the ravine. And so if you succeed, it's because they just slipped out of your pocket and fell down the ravine, right? If you fail, it's because Bertrand also falls down the ravine, right? So that's a simple Devil's Bargain, but it's a good one. A more complex Devil's Bargain might be, well, Bertrand, no matter what, on the other side of the ravine is a former customer of yours who you gave a cursed tattoo, right? So suddenly we're creating something interesting in the fiction that nobody anticipated before. And it's on us as players to, if that Devil's Bargain is accepted, to sort of make that now part of our story, right? It's part of our canon. And so we adjust, and that's how the game works. That's the collaborative nature of the game. And so bear that in mind as well. Something else also, since I know most of you are maybe more familiar with Trophy Gold than Dark, Trophy Dark has 2 die rolls that do not exist in Trophy Gold. Those are the Ruin roll and the Reduction roll. The Ruin roll, anytime your character sees anything disturbing or horrifying, you make a Ruin roll, and it can cause your Ruin to go up. And as your Ruin goes up, you can take on terrible conditions, which are usually curses or various afflictions, right? And they get worse and worse as your Ruin goes up. The Reduction roll is the secret sauce of Trophy Dark, because what it does is once you hit Ruin 5, you can't do this in Trophy Gold. In Trophy Dark, once you hit Ruin 5, you can betray the group in some way in order to get a Reduction roll, which gets your Ruin to get lower back down. And so that's really where Trophy Dark kind of like lives, is that sort of mid-story betrayal, right, by the character, by one character to the others. So bear that in mind as well. That's part of playing to lose, right? Part of playing to lose is knowing that your betrayal is going to make everyone die, and letting it happen, right, and doing it. So, okay. So, are there any other questions about the rules or about the characters or anything before we begin?
I have one Ruin roll question.
Sure.
When your character sees anything disturbing or horrifying, they make a Ruin roll. Is that from your character's perspective, or is it more just across the board?
It kind of exists on both levels, to be honest. I call for it, so it'll be whether I think you should make it the roll or not. But the nice thing is like the Ruin roll sort of like dictates your response, right? So like if your Ruin does not go up, well, there might be a really interesting reason why your character didn't find that particularly disturbing, right? So that's the story part, right? So
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so with all that said, and if there's no other questions, we'll take a quick 5-minute break. We'll come back and we'll begin ring 1. Ring 1. You are all in a graveyard. A gust of wind blows across the graveyard, setting tiny bells perched above graves to ringing. Below each bell, a string descends into the earth to a coffin. The bells are insurance for those terrified of being buried alive, so that they can ring for help. But it's impossible to know in this wind-blown din if any bell right now is being rung in earnest. Let's learn about these characters a little bit. Everyone, please think on the last time a debauch, a revelry, plunged you into a catatonic state so deep you could have easily found yourself below ground, fingernails clawing against a coffin's lid. Think on it for a moment. Whoever wants to tell us of their past, please do.
I think for Matteo, that was literally last night. He had come into a little bit of money in a manner we will not discuss, and immediately went to spend it in the dingiest, most disreputable pit he could find, and awoke this morning in that same place. Any remnants of that riches he came into were gone, whether spent or stolen while he was passed out drunk. It's not clear, but
thank you.
So he's certainly nursing a headache this morning.
Indeed. Candor, Bertrand?
Bertrand would probably say also within the last 2 or 3 days, maybe over a Sunday even. And in order to practice my tattooing, I'm constantly trying to find new sources and new people. And so in this particular case, I found myself in one of the houses of ill repute, in somebody's back of somebody's parlor, just drunk out of my mind and tattooing any part of the naked ladies I could find. And after so many drinks, forgot where I had even been and passed out and awoke the next day completely covered in feather boas and confused as all hell.
I would say Candor, it was only a month ago that Candor ended up, after professionally mourning at a wedding in one of the largest cities in a funeral at the one of the largest cities in the area, crashed a wedding and ended up, making a very wonderful, delightful connection with a fellow young woman who had, just the most incredible eyes, and it turned out that as the bride, it was not very, it wasn't taken very well that the two of them kind of absconded into the city and went on just a loving rager of alcohol and gambling. And when Candor woke up and realized that this was not only, the bride of this big famous wedding, but the magistrate's daughter as well, she had to get out of Dodge before she ended up in a shallow grave. But that's a month ago. Surely they've all moved on. No one can keep a grudge that long.
It is late in the day. The sun is dipping below the tree line, creating a dusty dark blue sky. There's still a little bit of light though. In fact, there's one family that has just interred the body of a deceased family member. And among that group, an old woman dressed in black, standing there among the mourners, her mouth a too perfect O of grief. Everyone, what about the tenor of her crying, the twisting of her handkerchief, or just her demeanor leads you to doubt her sincerity?
Bertrand has a practice eye because as he has been studying medicine and practicing being able to give that solemn news to the family when things just don't go well, he is able to spot a woman from 20 yards who is actually looking forward to the money more than anything else.
I think we noticed that she redoubles the cries and the application of the handkerchief to her face every time someone glances. Every time she notices someone glancing in her direction, it's almost like attention brings out the dramatics from her.
I love it. I get the impression this woman has buried her third husband, right? Yeah.
I think that for Candor, and of course, this woman's doing a great job. Game recognizes game. As a professional mourner, I get it. But it's it is the tinkling of the many rings on her finger that kind of give away the game there. That's when you're really, really mourning, you keep your hands free so that it is less obtrusive when you have to shake hands with the rest of the funeral goers. This woman wants people to know how wealthy she is now, and those rings and their tinkling sounds, they give it away.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Now, the reason why we're all here. The robbers were very clever. You are standing over a grave which looks quite secure. There's a heavy iron mortsafe still intact above the marble slab. Grave robbers, resurrectionists, as they like to call themselves, as you may well know or indeed call yourself, Metu. These grave robbers crafted a narrow tunnel from outside the graveyard, then traveled underground like rats until they could shatter the coffin at its head and pull the cold body out. One of the grave robbers is caught, which is the only reason why you're all here right now. An old man with only 8 fingers remaining, too old for this game, really. There is a crowd wheeling him about with furious blows to his head and his spindly raised arms. He's trying to defend himself. The family of the person disinterred has been gathered as well, and they are wailing. In fact, I would go so far as to say that the scene is about to get very chaotic. Violence could start breaking out at any moment. There are people shouting at the old man, "Where is the body? Where did they take it? Where is the body?" The bereaved family clearly want blood. They want blood, they want black dyes, they want cracked bones and teeth, they want revenge. And the body thief, the one they caught, is on his knees, defending himself from blows. He says, "We were to take the body to Dr. Galfani, to the flayed house. Please, please, I don't know anything else." Dr. Galfani, a medical scholar and a butcher. A wealthy misanthrope, rarely seen, whose flayed house blights the sloping hill above the town. Let us speak of some of these characters, because I feel like we all have a good connection to some of these characters. Metu, you almost certainly know this old man, since he's in your same profession. You are not part of this particular gang that took this body, but I am curious, what can you tell us about the gang that this old man is part of?
I think they're mostly surprisingly young. He is by far the oldest and was the leader of the gang, and presumably that's why he was the one unable to escape. But most of the rest of his gang are literally children.
Soon to be Dr. Morris. I'm going to assume you have a familiarity with Dr. Galfani in his flayed house, this medical iconoclast. Have you spent any time with Dr. Galfani? And if so, what are your thoughts on him? I'll get more specific. In what ways do you begrudgingly respect the work Dr. Galfani is doing?
I have not met Dr. Galfani, but he has written some fascinating papers on the decomposition of flesh after it's been reattached. And there's a lot of really fascinating, albeit completely disgusting, research he's been doing. And I'm just dying to meet the man so I can pick his brain.
Mm-hmm. Candor. The group of people, the bereaved, the angry, they send up a cry, a bounty for the body's safe return. Indeed, the family patriarch nods as money is pressed into his hands, pledges to fund a rescue attempt for the poor, lost person who we shall hereafter refer to as the beloved. And Candor, you are a professional mourner, which means you probably have some experience maybe dealing with bereaved people. What might you do to, well, as they all turn to look at you, 3 of you, knowing what the three of you do for a profession. As they turn to look at the three of you, maybe hoping that you will take up the bounty that they are collecting, how do you react, Candor? And importantly, what are you going to do to make sure that this crowd does not get out of control?
So the first thing is to, of course, very, very solemnly kind of step forward to address the patriarch specifically, and to talk about at length just how the impact that the beloved had on this community, on this area, and to kind of refocus this whole thing. We will not tear each other apart for blood. We will not in vengeance invoke the name of the beloved, but we will go and get justice for the beloved. And of course, not anyone here would be required to do such a thing. In this time of need, in this great time of pain, there are people who care about you, that will watch over you and will take care of this whole matter for you, that you can focus on the beloved, that you can focus on remembering the things that you loved about them, while we return their body to its final resting place. And it's this big performance.
I love it. Yeah, because of your skills in grief and performance, I'm not going to make you roll. I like that as a good, because you have those skills. I'm going to let them agree to this. They agree. The patriarch says, "All right then, good." As people are pressing money into his hands, do what you can. Do what you can to get my Ash back. Ash. That's the name of the beloved. Ash. Like the taste in everyone's mouth right now. There is a young man among the family, a bravo, well-dressed, a man notorious for puffery, but also for swordplay. He says, "Why should we trust them to get our beloved back? This man here," pointing to Matthew, "it is but happenstance that he is not the grave robber who took our beloved."
I don't know what you mean. I'm a respectable citizen.
Respectable. Tell me, were you here to snatch a body of your own and got waylaid by this scene, sir?
I was merely paying my respects.
Paying your respects and certainly looking out for prime opportunities, no doubt.
How dare you?
And he says, "Do I speak it untrue, sir?"
You do. Most certainly you do.
Do you intend to fight for your honor, sir?
If it comes to that.
Well, perhaps it ought. And he pulls out a rapier. What do you do?
I have no such fancy weapon as you. If you wish to fight for honor, then I'd suggest we fight with our fists.
What are you doing in the meantime, Bertrand?
I have little patience for displays of masculinity and cockswagger, and so I would be looking at the grave itself to see if there was any other clues as to why this body.
We're going to talk about why this body in a bit, but it's good to know that you're looking into it. Oh, Matthew, this young bravo cocky, arrogant, from a wealthy family, always had whatever he needs, but still expects more. He says, all right, fine. And I think the patriarch is trying to like calm him down, and like it's a, you know, but it's sort of one of those situations where he's hot-headed and he's, you know, he just needs to beat up something, right? He pushes up his sleeves, into his puffier shoulder sleeves, and he says, I feel you have me at a bit of a disadvantage, this being your home field and all.
I'm sure I don't know what you mean.
And what are you doing, Candor, while this fight is about to break out?
I'm weighing whether or not I should step in, because when this happens sometimes at funerals, and so frequently I will step in as the second of someone, and then simply, you know, stand there and allow myself to get pummeled. And usually most people will only hit someone without them obviously fighting back, maybe once or twice. And so I'm like, okay, wait a minute, do I know? All right, I'm doing the risk and cost benefit analysis in my head of whether or not that's the gambit I want to pull right now.
The Bravo says, lucky for you, sir, there is someone here who will mourn your death after I'm done with you, even if they only do so because coins have been placed in their pocket.
Of course, I think that everyone deserves someone to care for their passing. Even you.
He ignores you and says, and gets into a fighting stance. What do? Matthew.
Tia turns and spits on the ground and pulls off his ragged jacket, throws it on the ground, and says, and you accuse me of disrespect. You, the one who wishes to start a fight at a funeral.
He kind of takes a deep breath, says, you're right. I'm a gentleman. Rolling around in grave dirt is beneath me. And he pulls his sleeves back down and says, quietly, my father is a fool to trust you three to get Ash back. As a bit of an insurance policy, if you don't get Ash back, let's just say my friends and I will be very, very displeased.
Do remember, good sir, that as the grave dirt is beneath you, it is, of course, beneath everybody. And it will wait.
Standing up from the grave dirt that Bertrand had just been rooting around in actively, searching for clues, I go up to this gentleman, kind of clasp him on the back, and offer him my flask, put it into his other hand, saying, it will be just fine. I'm sure we'll figure it all out.
And the Bravo says, good. Well, he takes a drink from the flask. I demand justice of some sort in the near term. And he brandishes his weapon at the old man. And the old man says, but I can take you. I can take you to the others. I know what direction they were heading. I know them well. The old man has a point. Mathieu, but the Bravo seems like he's going to skewer the old man. What do you do?
I think Matteo is happy it's not him. If suspicion has been deflected, that's fine.
He is going to skewer the old man, Bertrand.
Having pettily wiped dirt all over this man's back and offered him a drink, I will then continue to say, "Good sir, give us this man. We will take him and use him and bring him back so you may dispatch him. But at this point, he is an excellent lead."
I like it. Let's have a risk roll. So the risk roll, the way it works is we talk about stakes. So it's clear what you're trying to accomplish. You're trying to save the old man so that he can be used to lead you, but also just to save him. And now we each, as players, get to say, or I should say Rob and Kyle and myself, we get to say what we think could go wrong if you fail. I think it's pretty straightforward that the old man just gets killed, but I'm open to other ideas from Rob and Kyle.
I think one of the other big dangers is that even if you cannot succeed in calming the Bravo down, he's going to lead his own rival hunt.
That would be problematic.
The Bravo may take offense at your intervention and turn on you.
Let's talk about dice. You get a light die if one of your skills applies. And
I did hand him some alcohol, and that is one of my skills.
That is true. I'll take it. Yeah, I'll take it. So you've got a light die, and now the Devil's Bargain. I'll remind you, the Devil's Bargain is something that the three of us offer to you, Sarah, and these are things that will happen no matter what if you accept one of them. But you also get a light die if you accept one. Who has an idea for a Devil's Bargain?
I think playing off my idea of the fail consequence, the Bravo, just no matter what, the Bravo takes a dislike to you and will use any opportunity in the future to cause you to come awry.
Yeah, I like a variation of that, which is that the Bravo follows you, your group.
I think that another, no matter what, the Bravo is going to influence any future funding you could possibly have for any of your future research.
Oh, that's
and
good.
He makes it abundantly clear.
It'll be under his thumb. Well, you got three options there. What do you think? Two of them are kind of samey, but that's okay. They're slightly different. And you don't have to take any of them, by the way. You can just stick with your one light die.
I feel like that's what I'm going to do, is just to roll the one die.
Okay, so we're going to be using the trophy die roller, which is in the trophy Discord. There's a little thing that says dice at the bottom. Do you have access to that, Sarah?
I do. Give me a moment while I pull it up.
Yeah,
I had physical dice today, sorry.
And then once you're in the dice channel, yep, there we go. Risk one. You have 6 light. There you go. Fantastic. You fully convince him to get off your case and to leave the old man alone. What does that look like?
I press the same flask back into his palm that is not currently pointing the weapon at the old man and say, "This is our best chance of success. They are still out there. The trail has not yet gone cold. This man can help us. I will bring him back to you, and you can murder him then.
Some of his cousins and his mother, like, you know, they kind of like do that thing where they surround him and pull him back, you know, and like, you know, calm him down or whatever. And the patriarch, he sort of like nods, and you can see he's collected a fair amount of coin at this point from all the people who are standing around. And he says, make haste. And then they shove the old man at your feet. And we're going to be swinging into ring 2 here in a moment. But before we do, our temptations. They are focused on the beloved. Questions. You each get one question, which I want you to think about on break. Bertrand, the beloved died tragically young, still beautiful. Looking at them, one was torn between wanting to be around them or wanting to be them. Question for you, what prevented you from ever speaking to them in life? Think on it, Bertrand. Next question is for Candor. The beloved died surrounded by loved ones. Their room was dark and their bed was soft. How was it that you were allowed entrance to this place of soft breaths and long hours? And the final question for Mathieu. The beloved still had it. It was meant for you, but they were buried with it. It was meant for you. Thanks to those grave robbers, it's back above ground now, and that's one step closer to being back in your hands. What precious item was buried with the beloved to keep it away from you specifically? We're going to take a 10-minute break before we head into ring 2 so you all can think about your answers, because this is kind of the core of our story. And so let's take 10. We'll come back into ring 2. Ring 2. We're going to talk about those questions related to the beloved in a moment. But for now, with ropes lashed around his sunken chest and his white-whiskered throat, the captured and beaten resurrectionist leads you among stone vaults and funereal statuary, pointing out tread marks here and there in the mud that mark the escape route that was followed by his grave-robbing companions. Mathieu, these grave robbers, are they any good at what they do?
Very much so, because they're so young. They can fit through, you know, smaller gaps. But they also evade suspicion. You know, a lot of people would assume that although these youngsters may be criminal, grave robbing is, you know, a step beyond the pale for someone of their age.
You are going among these stone vaults and statues. It's getting to be quite dark now at this point. And all three of you are reminded of a song, an old song that perhaps you can't remember all the words to, and that I'm not going to actually sing, but I will speak the words. If I go, when I go, as old as I will be, let devils grab my white hair, I'll go bald and I'll go free. If I go, when I go, as rich as I will be, Let devils melt down all my gold to make a damn trophy. I'll be poor and I'll be free. Don't you cry, 'cause I'll be free. Everyone, what do your people say happens to the dead when they die?
Candor is from far off lands, and the idea that people ever really die is kind of verboten. That rather than die, we pass on to a different life. We leave the body behind to pick it back up again later when some great work has been done in the other world, but those bodies are always picked back up later.
Thank you.
Matteo is a simple and perhaps unimaginative person, and he doesn't believe a word of it. He thinks once you're dead, you're food for the worms, and that's all there is to it.
Purely transactional for Matthew, huh? Good. I'd be curious to get our Dr. To-be's opinion on the matter.
Bertrand believes through his medical training that it is important to think of a body as a corpse. It is not a person any longer. And his medical training has rigorously told him that such nonsense as the soul or transcendence is just utter nonsense. However, Bertrand has a very spiritual and somewhat also verboten connection to his tattoos and how they influence people and others. And so he believes that there is many other forces out there, but how that pertains to our own mortal coil, he does not know. Or not pretend to know.
Thank you. You follow the trail to a receiving vault, a structure used in winter to store the dead until spring, when the ground is soft enough for digging. As you step inside the vault, it is all darkness and the smell of stale incense. A section of the back wall falls away, revealing a hidden entrance to a lightless tunnel with soil walls. The old man says, "My night vision has gone rather poorly in my old age. Perhaps one of you could light a lantern or a torch."
Certainly. Tools of the trade and all that. I have a lantern with me.
He says, "Yeah, tools of the trade. I think there's something deeply and richly ironic that you are going to retrieve this body."
Just doing what I do best.
You have a light source. How do you as a group determine who enters first to face any traps that might be left behind? Indeed, let's just have the scene before you enter the tunnel. Roleplay.
Well, Doctor, after you, perhaps.
Do I what?
I thought you may care to be first to see what lies beyond the portal there.
Bertrand hoists the old man up by the ropes on the back of his arms and said, "Why not send him in first?"
Seems a very reasonable precaution to me, yes.
He says, but I have gotten you this far. Surely my usefulness is expended. Certainly my old bones are expended for the evening. I think I need to rest.
I
Oh,
think that you should continue to be useful unless you wish to truly be expended.
He sort of like snarls and he looks at you, Candor, and says, say some nice words for me when I'm gone, will you?
Sure, absolutely. That'll be 20 gold pieces, I believe, and I prefer it up front.
He rolls his eyes in the torchlight. You can see that, and he trudges forward through the tunnel. This tunnel, the ceiling is low. The path sometimes dips below the water table, forcing you to navigate opaque pools of still water that smell of fungal damp. The moist walls are practically dripping. This is a miserable incursion into the earth. And here it might be fun to talk about why you would do such a thing. Let us speak of the beloved. Bertrand, the beautiful beloved, young and beautiful when they died. What prevented you from ever speaking to them in life?
Ash really was a beautiful creature. They live just in the brownstone across from my student housing, and the university did put us up in a fairly nice, if not ramshackle part of town, but I would always watch them leave in the evenings in their fabulous clothes, obviously part of a society that I might never know if I don't finish my degree. Especially liked watching out the windows as they would leave for Sunday in their church finest. But once I was confronted, just happened across the same sidewalk as you do with beloved neighbors, and Ash spoke to me, and I stood there dumbfounded, unable to summon the words to speak that beauty 2 feet from me. And I am ashamed to say that I feel to this day the missed opportunity might drive me insane. And so as I wander through these fettered pools, I think only of their beauty and how different my life could have been had I just the courage to speak one word. Hello.
You look down into the pool of water briefly, and in the torchlight, you can see laying beneath the water Ash, their face still and white like porcelain, their hands folded over their chest. Even in this muck, they are beguiling. Please make a ruin roll. /ruin.
That would be a 1.
Your ruin does not go up. Why are you keeping it together? This is clearly just a phantom or something of your imagination, but why doesn't it disturb you?
I have often fantasized about their beauty in any reflective surface, and it makes perfect sense that I would see them again here.
Fantastic, thank you. Carrying on, Candor. That dark, soft death room as Ash lay dying. How is it you were allowed to be there?
I make it my business when I roll into town to find some way to befriend the terminally ill. And now this is, of course, very distasteful, but it is a professional necessity at times. And usually that means, hanging around hospitals and watching who goes in and out and engineering meet cutes. But that's not actually how I met Ash. I had spent time just as I came into the city and ran into them at a bar. And only much later that night did I discover that they had actually snuck out of their of the room that they were supposed to be convalescing in. And there was a genuine connection there. And this last month has been a whirlwind romance that, I felt obligated. It was obvious that there was going to be coin out of it, but also Ash felt like coming home somehow. And that's something I'm never going to get.
A second question. Your cursed dagger behaved differently in Ash's presence. What did it do, or how did you experience it differently?
It was... The dagger makes itself manifest in my dreams, usually dreams of intimacy and closeness with others. And it left Ash alone in my dreams. Like that it never sullied those. Instead, it became excited. There's no other term for it. Every time I spent an evening or an afternoon with Ash, that it also felt like soon it would be going home. And that horrified me. I couldn't let it do that, could I?
And speak of the devil as you walk through this tunnel. The dagger is making its pleasure known to you. Its excitement. Please make a ruin roll.
That's a 3, and my ruin's only 2, so that is going up.
We'll talk about that in a moment, the condition that is, but how are you feeling right now?
I know what it wants. It wants to be buried within the beloved. It wanted to be the reason that the beloved was buried as well. But now the beloved is exhumed, it has a chance to be buried within them again. And I am terrified that I am actually very, very excited about the possibility that Ash is gone, and it is horrible that Ash is gone, but the dagger wants to be gone for the first time, and perhaps I could blaspheme Ash's memory to save myself from it.
Fantastic, thank you. Mathieu, what was Ash buried with to keep away from you that is now unearthed with their bodies unearthing?
It's a signet ring used for making a seal on official documents that belong to their family, and that I perhaps had once stolen and was recovered. And I could, if it was in my possession, I could use it to forge documents and gain access to places where I shouldn't be allowed.
Presumably this is connected to your desire to establish this orphanage for the outcast weepers. Weepers is uppercase, which is interesting to me. Who are the weepers?
They are poor orphans who are employed by people of rich families to follow along with the funeral procession and weep. And they're given just a few petty copper coins for this, as you know, as an act of charity, as the rich families would see it. And I was one of these orphans, and I remember my time there with, you know, some revulsion. And even though Matteo is a very blunt, kind of on the surface unpleasant character, he actually does wish well for those who are in the same predicament that he found himself in at that age.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Let's talk about conditions. Candor. Your condition is called the brother in your pocket. You had hoped that he was well fed enough to stay quiet, but your tiny brother, made of sticks, skin, and hunger, is awake in your pocket and craving meat. You two are bound. If he gets hurt or hungry, you do as well. How do you satiate your tiny brother's hunger for the time being?
Usually I will find some kind of vermin. Rats particularly are usually easy to find in these cities, and feed it you know, a rat or two. But unfortunately, with us being where we are, I'm going to have to bleed myself and offer just a little bit of my own blood in order to keep it quiet. This I can't leave my brother, but I can't stop what I'm doing now either. This is far too important.
Indeed, indeed.
I use the cursed knife to do it too, I think. Just
I was wondering
very
about that.
quietly as I can.
Yeah.
Just, you know, pull out the knife, cut you know, a part of my hand, like the back of my hand, and bleed into my pocket for a little bit.
Indeed, indeed. This tunnel goes on for some time, and it doesn't run straight. It will frequently branch without warning, and some sections of the roof sag, requiring progress on bellies and elbows. There's nothing pleasant about this work. I think that there's no more trail. The old man ceases to be useful. And the immediate trouble is navigation. Navigating these tunnels so you don't get lost, and indeed so you find where you're trying to go. Who among you, based on your skills, is most likely to be able to navigate this space?
I think Matteo, probably. Maybe this is not his first time in these tunnels.
Probably not. I imagine not. And you have stealth and darkness as skills, so I'll take that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do a risk roll. Sarah, Kyle, what could go wrong if Matthew fails?
I think the obvious choice is that we stay lost, but I think a more interesting consequence is that we get found. You know, we wander around, but something finds us, and probably finds us delicious.
I'm afraid Candor took the words right out of my mouth. Give me a moment.
Oh no.
I'll keep it simple. The group gets split by a cave-in.
I think that we spend enough time lost that the old man's heart gives out, and now we literally have the dead weight of his dead body that we must also burdensomely move through these tunnels.
The ironies piling on top of ironies. Very good. Let's talk about dice. So we know you're getting your first light die because of, I think, because of darkness, especially. Devil's bargains, I'll open. My devil's bargain is, no matter what, you find a weeper in the tunnels.
No matter what, I think it becomes apparent the thing that you are looking for, that you want specifically from Ash's body.
That's where the old man might come in, because the old man might know something, right?
No matter what, you, in navigating this, actually harm yourself, whether you twist your ankle or bash your arm against something or a rock falls on your shoulder, but you spend extra amounts of time trying to navigate your pain.
Rob, you're muted. Do you want to take one of those?
Yeah, those are good. Yeah, let's bring out the reason that I'm down there. I'll take Kyle's devil's bargain. So then I have.
It's going to be a risk 2 for now. 2 light dice.
5.
A 5 is a success. I'm going to make the complication my devil's bargain because I'm the GM. And you are going to run into a weeper. If you don't want to run into a weeper, you can add a dark die and roll all of them again.
Let's meet a weeper.
Very well. Give us the scene first, though. How are you navigating? What does this look like?
I think as the old man starts to falter in his navigation, Matteo just kind of tuts disgustedly and takes his lantern and goes, "Come on, I know my way around down here. Just try and keep up." And looking around curiously, holding the lantern up, he goes, "Yeah, this way, this way."
The old man says, "You seem mighty interested, sir, in retrieving this body. I would even go so far as to say you are positively anxious and excited. Mayhaps your companions do not know your real reason for being down here."
What reason could I need beyond the payment that has been promised me?
Oh, well, it mayhaps have something to do with the family ring, the signet ring that was buried with the body. And mayhaps I know that this ring used to be in the possession of a certain member of my profession, but who lost it and is mayhaps trying to recover it. One wonders what one would do with the signet ring of a great family. One wonders if one's companions were told about one's true motivations.
Wait, you're after Ash's ring?
This old man doesn't know what he's talking about.
I spent
He
a
and
lot
I go back some way. He's trying to sow discord in our ranks, is what he's trying to do. Don't listen to him.
Soon to be Dr. Morris will throw an arm over and ask, just exactly what did you do to this old man to make him want this for you?
You might call it professional rivalry.
No solidarity amongst thieves, I take it.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but certainly no solidarity amongst those of different affiliations, shall we say.
The old man says, there are many, many rules and hierarchies in the world of grave robbing. I would be happy to explain it to you in some detail. Or perhaps I could tell you how my gang of grave robbers heard something about the schemes of a certain grave robber here in town. Financial schemes. Or perhaps you could tell them, friend.
I don't know what it is you think you know, but I can assure you, he says, looking toward Candor and Bertram, his gang are the most successful bunch of grave robbers in this town. I, on the other hand, provide a more bespoke service. I am not affiliated with any organization such as he is, but he just doesn't like the competition.
Truth be told, my little fellows, they betrayed me. That's why I was caught. They quite literally threw me under when they saw that we were caught. Kicked me. The back of my legs sent me crumpling to the ground and then ran off with our prize. If we find them, I intend to wring a few little necks.
It seems Candor was quite right about the honor among thieves after all. I take back my assertion.
I don't consider what I do to be thievery, though. I consider it more of a professional service. People like you, sir, to you, Bertrand, you always like to have a body or two to fiddle around with, do your thinkings and learnings on.
Yes, I do like to do thinkings and learnings a lot. Fellows, little fellows, how little, Matthew, what on earth is he talking about? Does he hire children to rob graves?
I don't know so much about hire. I don't know what he pays them, if anything, but yes.
They are the best sort. They can fit in small places. They
have access, very easy access to the backs of people's knees.
Yes, there is that. I find that the young, well, these particular boys and some girls, they're all quite filthy, and so they're not as revolted by the grave stench.
Yes, and I suppose they eat less too. Look, do we have to keep talking to this old
Well, if you
man?
feed
I'm
them
sure...
too much, they get too fat and they can't get into the tunnels and things. They can't slip into a crevasse. It's a professional requirement that they stay rangy.
I think Matthew just has a slight smile on his face because he feels like the old man is digging his own grave with his two companions, and he doesn't need to protest any further about not believing him.
Yeah, are we near any of those bodies of water that we have kind of had to swim in like that kind of muck? Are we near any of that?
Would you have in mind?
I kind of want to shove the man's face under it and let him know that I am not pleased with the child labor.
You can do that.
All right.
And as you pull his head up, he'll say, "Ha! I won't be judged by the likes of you, outsider. We have our own way of doing things around here."
That's true. Here's my way, dunk.
Very good. Now, you go for a time through the tunnels. It's slow going because of the nastiness of the environment. You may wonder how close to the surface you are at any given time. Are those voices you hear through the soil? Bertrand, you do hear a voice through the soil, but it's not quite close enough to hear, at least from where you're standing. Do you want to get closer?
What direction
Above
is the
you.
voice? Above me. Is there any intonation, words we can't hear, but does it sound?
It just sounds like,
I'd be compelled. Pure scientific curiosity. I must see what this could be.
as you put your ears close to the top of the tunnel, you hear faintly, "I want you. I have always wanted you." Please make a ruin roll.
That would be a 2.
Still holding it together. How do you react?
I whisper Ash's name in response and wait to see if I get a reply.
There's none.
I gather up a handful of the dirt from the wall and use my ritual to turn it into ash and blow it back through the tunnels.
Oh, interesting. Let's take a look at that. So your ritual is called ashes, cremate a handful of matter. Oh, I see. So you're turning the dirt into ash. And as you blow the ash in the tunnel, perhaps you're all taking a little break with the lantern set between you. The ash covers a person who cannot be seen, making their shape among you. Everyone sees it. Everyone please roll ruin. Let's start with Candor. Did yours go up?
Yes, it did.
We'll
I
talk
am
about,
now at 4.
We'll talk about your little brother in a bit. Looks like yours did not go up. Bertrand. Bertrand's cool as a cucumber down here in the tunnels. But yours did. Matthew, how do you feel when you see this thing? This apparent shape among you?
Matthew just kind of recoils and away from it. What is that? Have you conjured something, Doctor?
I think it is the beloved. Ash. Hello?
And this shape, which is just vaguely person-shaped because of the ash that just sort of has landed haphazardly on them. Ash-covered fingers stretch forth to touch your cheek. Dr. Morris, do you let them?
I do.
They touch your cheek and you feel cold racing through your veins. The old man mutters to you, Candor. He says, that is a grave sprite, and I fear they have gotten their grips on your friend there.
So that's not Ash?
The grave sprites know what you want to see, and they respond accordingly. Or they just let you fill in the details.
Perhaps I should observe. That sounds like something I can absolutely learn from.
Perhaps. Meanwhile, Bertrand, you can feel your blood seizing up. You are going to die if you don't do something. What do you do?
Once I feel the ice cold in my veins and it shakes me loose from my fantasy, I wish to try and use my ritual hollow to repel this spirit. Now, the text of the ritual says push a spirit from its own body. How discorporeal this might interact with that, I don't know.
Fine. Yeah,
excellent.
We'll figure it out.
Then I would like to, from the center of the warmth that I still feel in my chest, in the blood in my heart that has yet to go cold, I compel this creature away from me.
I think what could go wrong here is pretty straightforward. It's just you just die if you fail. But I do want to, if anybody else has any better ideas than that, please say so. But that feels like the most obvious thing.
I think that if you fail to do this, you are going to be, your connection with all of like your family members, anyone that you have an attachment to, they are suddenly going to be haunted as well.
Oh, intriguing. It like imprints on you or something, right? It's interesting.
I think you'll become one of these great sprites yourself.
Let's talk dice. Taking a look at your skills, do you think you have a relevant skill here? You're muted, Sarah.
I'm not quite sure how one would use a skin skill, but as it has touched my cheek and that is how it's affecting me.
Oh, I'll take that. I like it. Yeah, I like it. Devil's bargains. Who has a thought here?
I think no matter what, you are going to carry this grave sprite with you. as we go forward.
I'm going to say no matter what, the grave sprite ends up in the old man.
No matter what, you attract the attention of more grave sprites.
Do you accept one of these offers, Bertrand?
I do. No matter what, this grave sprite will be attached to me and follow us.
Good. You have 2 light, 1 dark, risk 2, 1.
I keep grabbing my real dice.
Hey, 6 light.
Ooh, that's very good.
That is very good. You will, the grave sprite will not be an immediate concern. Describe the ritual.
Bertrand pulling from his own skin, which none of his companions can see, but under his clothes, there are many tattoos and scars and self-inflicted tears in his flesh, in which he is using as a spiritual connection to whatever it is in the universe that affects him. But as this grave sprite is pulling this cold energy into his body, he channels the remaining warmth he has through these scars and tattoos, and they immediately, almost like a searing heat in his body, cast off this creature and compel it 2 feet away, hopefully looking stunned.
Good. Candor, at a certain point, a little later, as you're all taking a break, navigating the tunnel, because it is very slow going, you catch sight of someone off one of the branching paths. It appears to be a boy, and he is crawling on his hands and knees in the tunnel, despite the fact there's plenty of room for him to stand up. Candor, what do you do?
I think immediately I am going to I'm going to begin my ritual and bind them so that they can't get away. They might be a much more useful guide than the old man is now, and so I am going to use my ritual to bind him.
I don't need a roll. You can bind them.
Fantastic. And then
What-
I
yeah.
mention, kind of point him out to the others, like, I think we might have caught one of your employees. I turn to the old man with a sarcasm.
He says, that's not one of mine. You can smell mine from 100 yards away.
Well then, let us find out who you are. And I draw him up into our space and say, name yourself, child.
How does the binding look like? Are they able to walk around and stuff, or like what is that? Or are they just like sort of like spiritually bound, or are they physically bound?
They're spiritually bound. Their entire body is like rigid, and an unseen force is basically keeping them completely compressed, and it pulls them and pushes them and everything, as not but by their own will, but by the will of the caster.
Good. So I will tell you that when you see the boy, Matthew, you can tell that it's a weeper. What about the boy's appearance confirms this to you?
It's the the clothes he wears, or they wear. It's just a grey habit, basically, that comes all the way to the ground, which is the outfit that the weepers are attired in when they perform their service at funerals.
He says, I don't know why I am drawn to you, but you must release me. I must continue the work, the service I was hired to perform.
Your service ended when the funeral procession did.
No. I was given extra money, extra coin to, well, the family. The person they lost was a boy about my age, and they've paid me to come down into the earth to lead him out when he inevitably returns.
Boy.
And so I've been down here for some weeks, crawling about in the tunnel, waiting. I sometimes think I can hear him.
What have you been eating if you've been down here for weeks?
You will see a whip-thin pink rat tail sticking out of his pocket. Take a ruin roll, please, Mathieu.
I got a 4, which is equal to my current ruin, so I'm good.
Yeah, I still owe you a condition, which we'll get to. But so how do you react when you see this?
I think visibly there's no reaction, but a shudder passes through Mathieu at the thought of having to survive on rats.
The old man says, well, since you have someone who must know these tunnels very well, I suppose I can go then. But the boy says, no, I think I'm lost. I'm not supposed to be here.
So you were hired by the patriarch of the family?
I was hired by, well, I'm not supposed to say who my employers are, but they're a very wealthy family, and they say that I bear a striking resemblance to the deceased's brother, and so they think that he will know me when he sees me and be drawn to me, and I shall lead him back home.
Boy, what did you mean by inevitably? The family expects what exactly? The spirit to possess you as you return to them?
Well, I don't know the details precisely, sir, but I think they think that the boy isn't really gone, that he's just on a sort of holiday from the mortal coil.
Yes, death sabbaticals, of course.
I mean, it's not entirely ridiculous. It's just that sort of thing doesn't happen on a mortal timetable. It is unheard of to have them return to their bodies so quickly. That's not reality.
But they didn't tell me how long I was to be down here. They said it might be some time.
Was someone supposed to come and get you, or how do you know when you're finished?
Well, I suppose when the deceased shows up.
How much are they paying you to do this?
He says, well, they've given me half now and half when the task is done. And he jingles his pocket.
I will. And I'm doing just some kind of quick calculation in my head. I'll double it if you tell me who it is that hired you, when, and then if you leave. This is unacceptable.
This conversation's all going as it's going. When in the dim light, beady black eyes in the dim light, small, bloated, furry bodies without number. Rats converging upon your location. They are going to swarm you if you don't take some sort of action. What are you going to do about all the rats suddenly filling up the tunnel?
I mean, we don't have to outrun all the rats. We can simply. I mean, we've got someone who deserves being kicked in the back of the knees, who could distract the rats for us.
That feels like a risk roll.
Could Bertrand, through perhaps a series of cast looks between Candor and himself, agree that this is an excellent idea and assist?
Yes, yeah. In fact, there's a help roll. Well, I'll let Candor do the roll, and then if the help roll's needed, you can do the help roll. I love it. What could go wrong here, Sarah, Rob? If the plan to feed the old man to the rats goes awry.
Candor could miss the back of the knee and therefore tumble into a hungry pile of rats herself.
Or the old man fights back.
Yeah, I'm thinking I like those. I don't think I have anything to add to that. You get a light die for using the old man. That's considered using the environment.
Yes.
Which is another way to get a light die. And so Devil's Bargains. Who has a Devil's Bargain?
Ooh, no matter what, going forward, the rats will follow Candor as they see her as a source of food.
I'm going to say no matter what, a large clump of rats fuses with the grave sprite.
No matter what, someone will be asking questions about what happened to the old man.
I really like the rats are going to be like, oh, you're here to feed us now. So I like that the attention from the rats for that.
Very good. And I think this is 2 light and 1 dark is automatic here.
All right, sounds good.
So we'll do the risk 2-1, and then if you need the help, we can do the help.
All right, that is 5, which is my dark, or
Indeed.
higher than my dark.
It is indeed. So the only way this could go better is if, with the help die, Sarah gets a 6. And so if you want to help Bertrand, you just have to say how you're vulnerable in helping and roll /weak to get a light die. And if that light die matches 5, your ruin goes up. And of course, Kyle can reject the help.
God, I don't think that I can help. My dice have been good today, but not that good. Bertrand will attempt to help. And perhaps in seeing Candor struggle to get the old man quite at the right angle into the pile of rats, will assist by bodily also helping her move the old man to distract the rats so we can escape.
Yeah, I think that I'm doing a particularly poor job because I have forgotten to release my bind on the Weeper child. So I'm completely still distracted and just acting on impulse.
Do I /help?
Weak gives you the light die. It was a 5.
Oh man.
So that was not any particular help, and your ruin goes up by 1.
Yep. All right.
That means I owe both you and Matthew some conditions, and we'll talk about those before we're done. This is a success with a complication. You have to stop because dark was high. You don't get to add another die to it, Candor. And the complication is going to be quite simply that the rats, in considering you a source of food, will also consider the Weeper your first offering.
Oh no.
Especially because they want revenge, right? Because he's been eating them. So, but do describe how you saved the group right now.
Yeah, I think that it's particularly messy with Bertrand and Candor just like make eye contact and immediately start shoving this guy towards it. But with all of the distractions, with all of the difficult maneuvering in the space, he's sitting there, he's screaming, he's fighting, even, and once the rats chew through his bonds as they're getting at him, we have to keep him kind of in the torrent of rats and kind of kick him back in, and it is particularly ungraceful and undignified.
I love it. But the 4 of you, including the Weeper, can run and get out of there. And eventually, you will find a grate. A grate in the earth slides away. The tunnel, you have managed to end up directly in the basement of the flayed house. None come here uninvited. The cellar smells of astringent, preservatives, black creeping mold. Medical exhibits and experiments crowd the dimly lit space. There is a preserved human skin, tattooed shoulder to ankle with pigmented demons, multi-mouthed faces snarling and fighting in a tempest. There is a jar that contains a rooster, vertically bisected, with human teeth implanted in the comb of its head. There is a giant's skeleton, humpbacked and twisted, standing on display. A nameplate on the exhibit reads in uppercase letters, "Kind." Which of the 3 of you knew this giant when they were alive?
Sure, maybe Matteo did somehow.
The giant had made plain their wish to be buried at sea, and yet here they are. When you, Matteo, rowed their shrouded body out to cast them into the water, you were followed. Were you an inattentive fool who didn't notice when your friend's body was fished back out of the water? Or were you an accomplice, bribed to look the other way? And what do you owe them now?
Yeah, I think I was an accomplice. The giant was a sometime drinking companion. Who had crewed aboard ships and wished to be buried at sea. And Matteo promised to do that for him, but at the same time, then offered his body to a medical person such as Dr. Bertrand. Not the same.
Dr. Galfani, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Because his body was so unusual, it fetched a good price.
Very good. Let us speak of conditions. Conditions.
Are you intentionally doing the spooky echo on conditions?
Maybe, I don't know. This condition is for Bertrand. It is called "The Bell Tolls for Thee." You're a driven individual, so you're not going to let a little thing like dying slow you down, but you can feel it coming, a cold grip on your bones, muscles tightening as rigor sets in. For now, your fists can beat some flexibility back into your flesh, bending stiff limbs when they won't behave. Perhaps this is the effect of the grave sprite. But think on it and how that affects you. And for you, Matthew, your condition is they're coming to get you. Used to be you planted someone in the dirt. They had the decency to stay put. An enemy you thought was dead has returned and is in pursuit. What tipped you off?
I was warned by another acquaintance that questions were being asked about me. And when they told me who was asking the questions, I was extremely surprised because it's someone I thought was dead.
We shall discuss this next time, probably. Candor, your tiny brother is starting to moan now when you need him to be quiet. The others wouldn't understand if your brother were revealed. What do you do to keep him quiet?
I think I think my little brother needs a friend. And so I take a moment to, spend some time just talking to the Weeper, very quietly, and convince him to give me, a scrap of clothing or something. And I take it and I tie it very, very loosely into the shape of a small, stick figure, almost all on its own. And I put that down into my pocket so that my little brother has a friend to play with. That they will not be kept lonely in their moaning.
Good. Now, all over this room, this basement, this Grand Guignol ghoulish exhibit, are piled gunny sacks spilling treasures stolen from the dead, kept here in the home of someone so rich as to be unimpeachable. Rings, timepieces, gold teeth that bear the marks of tools that tug, the product of years of shadowy labor, the sort of labor done by our friend Matthew and our former friend, the old man who is now rat food. Here, all this treasure is left uncovered with no fear of discovery or retribution. The laws you're accustomed to have no sway here. I will pose the question to you, Bertrand. Why do you need so much money? What is it about soft hook salt that is so expensive?
Well, medical school is expensive. And so I feel like Bertrand has many, many debts that he is trying to pay. And scraping together enough money for soft hook salt isn't necessarily the problem. It's the number of people that you have to bribe in order to get the name of somebody who actually has enough to sell.
Do you help yourself to the treasures so casually strewn about?
I absolutely do.
Matthew, do you help yourself to the treasures?
I think a few things will find their ways into his pockets, yes.
Indeed. Candor, there is a lit chandelier overhead, and the light is broken periodically by a ring of human hands attached to the chandelier that twitch. Silently opening and closing. And there is a sound. Chunk, chunk. And the of a chain being let out as the chandelier falls rapidly toward you. Stops. The hands grab you, and you are being lifted up. What do you do, Candor?
Yeah, it's I'm going to without thinking, I draw my cursed blade and attempt to stab the hands that are holding me most closely to let me go. Usually I would not draw anybody else's blood with this blade but my own, but this is a separate circumstance.
I would first like a ruin roll.
Absolutely. All right.
You're keeping it together with a 2, no problem there. Now we're going to scroll. What could go wrong, Sarah or Rob?
The dagger doesn't like being used in that manner. And wants vengeance on you for the slight.
I'm going to say, I like that. I'm going to say, in the moment, the dagger severs your hand to add to the tableau of the chandelier.
I had something similar, but it was indeed that as you stabbed at the hands and they dropped to you, you fell from the rising chandelier and fell onto your own dagger and died.
Let's talk about dice. Do you have a relevant skill here?
Oh, I do not, I don't think, because I've got performance, grief, rituals, and melancholy.
It's not feeling good as far as that goes. Let's see if you get a dice from Devil's Bargains. Any Devil's Bargains on the table?
No matter what, this causes Candor to get separated from the rest of us.
That's pretty good. I'm going to say no matter what. The dagger is temporarily separated.
Oh no.
No matter what, and this hopefully would be more consequential as somebody who is constantly consoling others in their grief.
Mhm.
When anybody touches you with their hands, you are physically recoiling from any human contact as this scars you so deeply.
Oh my gosh, that's so good.
You want that one?
I want the dagger is separated from me one, but I think that like in my head that's happening. That is happening anyway because I'm
Canon.
just like, yeah, no, that's absolutely appropriate.
So you're taking the touching one?
No, I'll take I'll take the dagger one.
Okay,
The dagger is separated from me.
Risk 1/1. I think the dark is automatic here. So risk 1/1. Take it away.
And I'm in trouble because I am at ruin 5 already.
That would be really bad if you rolled a 6 dark. You did not though. You got a 5 light. Well, the complication feels almost implicit in the scene, but we'll maybe figure it out later. But just describe how you lose A for yourself and lose the dagger.
So the dagger basically scoffs at being used this way. And as it stabs into one of the hands and I begin to drop, the dagger reverses itself and puts itself in the hands of the chandelier. And as I fall painfully, I look up and the hands of the chandelier are, you know how like a very talented magician can roll like a coin across all of their fingers and kind of make things disappear that way. I'm sitting there watching, and these hands are just spiriting away this dagger until it is gone. And I'm just like completely flabbergasted as to where it might have run off to.
I love it. As Candor lays on her back, the two of you pile your sacks with ill-gotten treasure. A giant statue looming over you, a rack of tattooed flesh looming over you, and all manner of horrors on the shelves in the exhibit. So passes ring 2. Let us take a quick 2-minute break. We'll come back and do Stars and Wishes.
Okay.
Stars and Wishes. Stars are things you enjoyed about the session. Something, a scene or a bit of role play, something about the characters, something about something I did, something about the module. Wishes are things you hope to see in the story next time. Whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
I'm digging the characters and this scenario is I don't know, something about it feels a little different from previous trophy darks that I've played. it's kind of a more contained physical space in a way, but
I can see that. Yeah, it definitely has like a little bit more of a claustrophobic feel, I think, which feels thematic, I guess, for it. I'm really enjoying it. I like the incursion. I keep saying module. The incursion is really well written. Just there's lots of good stuff in there to use as the GM, which is really fantastic. You just read straight off the page, which I love. And I like just the sort of like, there's just a really good like gothic horror vibe going on with just the role play and the different scenes. Moments I particularly loved was I loved the grave sprite moment. I loved kicking the old man into the rats moment. Those were some standouts. I like all this sort of skullduggery with Rob's character, this sort of like under the surface skullduggery, which is kind of being hinted at, which I really love. Yeah, I'm really having a good time. It's great story so far.
I really love that Devil's Bargain Sarah came up with the last one there, that you know, Candor would be unable to just recoil from physical touch. That was
I thought that was really good. Yeah. Even though it wasn't taken, it was really good. It was a good offer, and it kind of set the tone, and like and it felt like really tonally interesting.
I think I'm getting the hang of it. Stars for me, Rob, you had a really great moment in which I could very easily picture you as your character, this grave robber, calling out the Bravo first thing of like, I'm not uncivil, you're uncivil. That whole exchange was really fun. And I feel like you're right, the putting us underground and kind of keeping our characters contained in what we have to do and where we are makes for a more kind of intense role-playing opportunity, which I'm really digging too. Wishes for next week. I hope that we see just how far this doctor has extended into what body horror lies in front of us and how like visceral that's going to be, because I think that Michael probably went down a really interesting path with that. So I'm very excited. So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it too.
I'd say stars for me. I think everyone has come up with really, really great devil's bargains. I think the procedure of coming up with devil's bargains and talking about how, like, what could go wrong, that is just incredibly powerful. And I think everyone does a really, really good job with it. The other thing that I love is that we're almost ostensibly in this incursion acting like, you know, like we might be heroes almost, you know, like we've been hired to go do an actual job that, you know, morally is not necessarily a bad thing, to go get the body back from grave robbers. And yet, like, it's so like we are all creeping towards, you know, turning on each other. And I think that as more and more gets revealed, like, we're all just people pretending to be good, and I think everyone has done a really good job of portraying that. And I think that that's just my only wish would be like, I want to lean into that, like, because, and I mean, it's coming. It's Trophy Dark. The betrayal is coming.
You'll have
yeah.
to right away. Yeah.
Yeah. It's you know, I'm y'all are doomed for me. I'm just going to start, you know, casting judgment on Matteo and just like, but yeah, I'm quite excited because that's what I want to see more of.
My wish, I want to keep exploring the conditions. I really like how we kind of kick things off with the brother in my pocket.
Oh yes.
I want to explore the other two some more. And I want to see how these sort of like interesting story additions go as well, like the grave sprite, the rats, all that business. The fact that the rats will target the weeper, just all that stuff. I'll be very excited to have those moments. So.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to digging into the conditions. My one's like super interesting as well, so I'll have to give that some thought. And yeah, obviously somebody's hit Rune 5 now, so now the fun starts.
Fantastic. Any other stars or wishes before we go? All right. Well, in that case, thank you all so much. This was great fun. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.